Hey everybody, this is Dan Kahn back with Homestead Mortgage, and today I just wanted to talk with you all about appraisals. Just give you some information for those of you who just want to know how it pertains to the home buying process, and some information I think you'll find useful. So, first off, with appraisals, it starts at the beginning when the offer is being written. A lot of times these days, with the competition out in the marketplace, people may decide to waive their appraisal contingency in the offer to purchase. And that's fine as long as you know the risks and the possibilities that can happen, you know, with waiving the appraisal contingency. Because even if you waive that on your contract, you may still be required to get an appraisal, uh, in order to obtain the financing. So, the appraisal is always ordered by the lender. So we have to place the order, and the rules have changed. So back in the day, people could choose their own appraisers. We could have a list, you could call whoever you want, but that's not how it works right now. So we are the ones that will place the order for the appraisal. It'll get sent to a third-party management company that'll find a local licensed appraiser that'll schedule the appointment with the listing agent. Typically, is how that works if there's a seller's realtor. So they'll schedule the appointment. Buyers are not going to go to the appraisal. Usually, if you have an inspection done, that's the one that the buyers will attend. And again, you're not required to get an inspection for financing. That's a separate topic we can have. But the appraisal will go out to the property. Uh, they usually don't want a lot of input. They'll go and they'll take pictures of the inside and the outside of the home. They'll go inside, they'll take some measurements, take photos of the inside, the bedrooms. And depending on which loan program that you're using, there may be different things that the appraiser is specifically looking for. They're not there to do a full inspection like an inspector will. They're going to just do very surface level things. They're not ones to be relied upon about condition of the property. Um, they're going to do, again, just kind of visual inspections on that. So once they go to the property, they'll then take that information, they'll go back and, they'll do their report. So when the appraisers are putting their report together, they're looking at, what's the purchase price. Now they do get a copy of the purchase contract, which is usually seen as a good thing because the appraiser knows, what you're buying the house for. But that shouldn't impact their opinion of value. It's good that they know. They will then look at other comparable home sales that are in close range and near similarity in home style. So they'll usually like to stay within a close radius, especially if there's a lot of other home sales that have happened in the area. Usually they like to stay within about a mile. They can go out a little bit further if they need to, if there's not any great comparable other homes that have sold that are close in style to the house that you're purchasing. The first three comparable home sales that they'll use, and again, they like to usually use homes that have sold within the last 6 months. Okay. So the first three comparable home sales that the appraiser puts on the report carry the most weight and are what the appraiser believes to be the best comparable homes that have recently sold to justify what the value is of the property that we're looking at. But usually they'll list a total of five comparable home sales, sometimes six. Um, and again, depending on the loan program too, again, there might be some different things that they look for, but they're not going to change the value of the property based on which loan program that you're using, whether it's a government loan or conventional loan or whatever it is. So once they do all that, then they'll take some time, they'll put the report together, and usually within about 3 to 5 days after they're out at the property, that's when they will give us the report back. Once we have the report and it's returned to us, then we know who the appraiser is as a lender. We will also, first off, look at, what did the house appraise for? What was the value that the appraiser gave to it? So that's the first places that our eyes go to. The next one is to see, did the appraiser mark the appraisal as is or subject to? We're hoping, of course, that it's coming back as is. Now, what that means is that the appraiser didn't see anything that was of any concern to them, that upon inspection of the property, everything was in good condition relative to, safety measures, typically is what they're looking for, and any major structural issues. So if the appraisal is subject to, that's where they will list, here's the value of the property, but it's subject to this, whether it's, hey, the roof is maybe in bad condition, they're worried that there might be leaking shingles or something like that. if there's, cracks in foundation. So whatever it might be that caught the appraiser's eye when they went through the property, if they're not confident that it's something that's not going to be an issue, they'll list it as something that has to get either corrected or have an expert, get an opinion of whatever it might be that the appraiser saw that they're concerned about. And in that case too, they can go back and we can have the problems fixed, corrected, go back to the seller. Again, it goes back to whether or not you had an appraisal contingency on the offer, which adds some extra protection as the buyer. But again, a lot of people are waiving their appraisal contingency these days because it's such a competitive market. And again, as long as you know upfront before you do that, that you're taking the risk, um, that if something if the appraisal, well, this will be another thing we talk about too, um, but if there are anything that comes up where the appraisal is subject to, how are we going to get those corrected? So the other thing is, value. If the house comes in at or above the purchase price, that's great. At the time of purchasing, if the appraisal comes in higher than the purchase price, you cannot immediately tap into that additional equity. It's a comforting thing to know as far as when you're purchasing the house that you're, maybe getting a good deal if the appraisal was higher than your purchase price. You don't have to disclose that to the seller. That's the buyer's appraisal. They're the ones paying for it. The appraisal does not get reported to the city. They're not going to reassess the property because of an appraisal that you had done when purchasing or refinancing your home. So those are all good things to know, but it cannot, any extra equity cannot be used as an additional down payment, right? We go off the lower value between the purchase price and the appraised value when looking at what percentage of down payment that you're coming up with. Now, if the property appraises under, right? So if it comes in less than your purchase price, if you have an appraisal contingency, it'll also spell out what your options are there. Typically, what will happen is that in that event, you'll likely give a copy of the appraisal to the seller as proof to say, hey, we had an appraisal contingency. It didn't appraise out for what we're buying it for. So Mr. or Mrs. Seller, would you be willing to renegotiate with us? Can we have you lower the price? Can we do something? And that's where your agent, your realtor, will help you go through those options, and you can see if you can work something out with the seller to take care of that gap in the appraisal. Now, that doesn't happen often. As far as a low appraisal, it can certainly happen. Uh, but in this market, again, most of the appraisals that we're getting back are coming at or above value. And again, but if you waive that appraisal contingency, if the appraisal comes in lower than that purchase price, that's something up front where you can't go back to the seller. You can't ask them to reduce the price or renegotiate or anything like that because you agreed up front that even if the property does not appraise for what you're buying it for, that is not a valid reason that you will back out of the contract. Uh, so anyways, that's a little bit of how appraisals work. And if you have any other questions on those, I know there's more details you can get into about that. And again, I'm always happy to take any calls or questions from anybody as well. But hopefully some of you found that helpful if you're wondering, how it works with appraisals and financing and things like that. Again, my name is Dan with Homestead Mortgage. I appreciate your time here today. I look forward to hearing from you and hope you all have a great day.